Would you care for some more soda, comrade?
That could be one of the more famous lines from a first-person shooter campaign that I've played in a number of years. My name is Couch Cooper and this is my Atomic Heart PlayStation 5 review. Got hold of this game on day one on Game Pass, February 2023. I've got to be very careful not to let the sycophantia seep in and get sucked in again, because I fell head over heels in love with the game. There was a massive dry patch with decent story-based, character-based single-player campaigns, particularly the first-person shooter genre. It had been Bioshock Infinite since the last time I'd really enjoyed myself in that direction. Granny Xena also makes an appearance in the intro, which you wouldn't spot if you hadn't gone through the game already. That's a pretty cool Easter egg.
Thanks a million. Enjoy the celebration.
One thing I didn't have over on the PC was ray tracing and any decent sort of frame rate / performance. I had to put it down to 1080 in medium settings to get 60 FPS, but with this, we've got dynamic 4K. Don't know why we just can't have 4K. A recent update also allowed 120Hz if your TV allows it, but more importantly, we've got ray tracing, supposedly. I've narrowed it down to reflections only at this stage. Since my last visit to the game, it has also had a photo mode added. Now, there's heaven and hell with this photo mode. I obviously got completely obsessed with it, but at the initial front end of the game, it doesn't actually work too well. It puts too much darkness into the shot when you freeze the game itself. This only occurs in a particular level. I will take you guys all through it, and I will timestamp the photo section because it gets well out of hand. Cheeky achievement on the phone call at the start here in the booth prior to going to the parade.
Hi. Do you have Prince Albert in a can?
Yeah, and we ain't letting him out.
Oh, then is your refrigerator running?
Yeah, and it's coming to get you, kid.
Ah, crap.
Let's talk about that parade and that intro in the introduction to the world itself. And Rapture pulled this off brilliantly, giving you snippets of a fully functioning world prior to it all going wrong. We've also seen a really good take on that with the Lies of P. I know this intro like the back of my hand because I made a vignette from it. And if you look down the road, you'll see one of these floats pop in. Now that happens on the PS5 and the PC. It looks like it's an unavoidable thing. I definitely need to get out more. That puts me onto the sound, the music, the voices, the whole look of this intro. It gets you so hyped, so in the mood, so immersed in this dystopic, communist, crazy future that you just need to find out more about and want to see crumble.
A network of humans and robots. Humans will be able to control machines.
You can see how smooth these panning shots are out of the photo mode. It's ridiculous how amazing that frame rate is. It's certainly a pegged 60. One thing I will say about the game is it doesn't come with a run. It's a little bit like Doom, and the actual run speed itself is crazy. It's all or nothing with either walking slowly or going through everything at a breakneck speed. That's quite difficult for someone who likes a bit of capture. These twins though. On replay, there are certain sections that I misremembered the order of, and this campaign has some real tough spots and spikes with difficulty. But going back through it, it did two things. It reminded me that it isn't the most special game on earth when it comes to first-person shooting mechanics, and some of its puzzle sections are absolutely ridiculous. Large sections of the game feel like padding. Even though they look incredible, they feel a little bit last minute and rushed, or just lengthy for the sake of it.
It would be logical to begin our search there.
So, how do I get there?
First, we need to get to the distribution center.
The tedium around some of the climbing sections is absolutely horrendous, and I was amazed that I didn't flag this up first time round. I think I was just blinded. The game was so fresh and incredible looking that these puzzles were just minor things that were in the way of that amazing combat. And also on first playthrough, I wasn't too aware that you weren't going to see larger areas of open world systems. It's very much focused and arena smaller sections. So at that point, I was giving the game a pass, but I knew what was coming up here, and I was tutting very loudly constantly.
He's pretty good at ordering those robots around. It's almost like they're his property.
Having another swing at the game also allowed me to pump development points into the powers and actions that I knew were half decent. So it has more than enough for you to choose from, and you can't really level everything. So I went down a few build lines and found that the shock does metamorphosize a bit, and you can get a bit more going with the freeze and the goo. It was pretty cool to be able to experiment with that with the knowledge of what looks cool or has an effect on the enemies.
Wow. This place looks like no one's been here in a decade.
It could be due to a malfunction in the gravitational modulation system or excessive polymer fertilizer production.
But it's the sets, those liminal spaces, the lore behind them, the little snippets of story that you're given when you're introduced to a new laboratory, that clinical Soviet lighting, that brutalist design to all the corridors. It's very addictive to look at and get through. And that brings me on to that padding point. The whole front end is in this hydroponics lab and seed factory, and my god, if you didn't know the beauty that you had coming up, you would throw the pad down and be like, I'm done with this. That's why I wanted to put 2 reviews of this game out, because some of you might have got to it and just be like, I cannot handle all of these puzzles and backtracking. It would get to any normal gamer. I completely understand that, but the strong points of this particular video game are its enemies, boss fights, and semi-open world sections, and the weapon development and powers combined with how they affect what you're fighting. It's very satisfying. This is a working example of the photo mode light change. When I freeze the game and go into the mode itself, it's almost like that gamma is pushed down 5 or 10 notches. I even stood near lights and made sure I was in a lit area. It devastated me because some of that front end is very good looking. It does improve, thankfully, and you will see that later on. Maybe I don't timestamp. Those reflections on top of those flapping panels, I can straight up remember those not being on my GTX 1660 version of this game. But one thing I will say about running this on a medium PC was that it completely satisfied. I got through the game with no major problems, no crashes, and I did it in like almost 5 or 6 sittings. It was like a marathon. I was racing to get the content out because it was a day 1 release on Game Pass and I didn't have to spend a fortune on buying a physical copy, but I was also addicted to seeing what it was going to give me next, and this is where the whole game opens up and says, I am what you have seen on the trailers. It does have a strange sort of Bioshocky ecosystem attached to it, with the cameras, or daffodils as they're called, and smaller minor enemies attacking you within the radius. You get in more trouble if you're seen killing a robot. So I'm having like smaller intimate fights in and amongst the undergrowth in secret to try and not get myself highlighted by the cameras, which in the original game that I played on day 1 was quite easy to cheese. Like if the horde did come after you, it was more of a laugh, but with this there are proper consequences, and dealing with stuff in and around in the woods, particularly the teleporting mortar dudes, I found damn difficult. Those locked frames make the close quarters combat feel a bit more chunky and a bit more meaningful. The game also sports a dodge on the circle button, which you can power up to a double dodge. You're likely to be doing it left and right to get out of the way at the last minute on people who are lunging for you. It feels very cool. Cyberpunk's got a dodge in it. I like it with first person shooters. It almost gives you a second wind and you feel a lot more free and maneuverable. Flanking people is done quicker, and moving or jumping in the air also adds to puzzle complication. Don't get me started on the air jump issues. Let's have a good look at some of these blighters, because that's one of the things I've always wanted to do in the game, is just take a breath and see exactly what I'm fighting, how it's built, how it's put together, and back to that Soviet brutalist design. Brilliant stuff with the little legs and the eyes, even the copper inside of it once the blade itself is extended. There's loads of detail on these enemies, and that's where the photo mode comes into its own. This is not the photo mode section, by the way. Cheesing and detection is still blatantly a thing, and you can just scuttle off into a building and a lot of the enemies will lose interest very quickly. There's no sort of vision cone. The only alert status is that number up in the top right hand side, and that doesn't always implicate exactly what's going on screen. You might actually be full on attacked and it not even be on one or any particular alert level. I don't think that's a glitch, just some of the horde are with that camera system and some of them are just wandering around aimlessly within these smaller open world sections.
Sincerely hope we don't encounter any obstacles along the way.
Don't jinx it, Glove. Otherwise, we'll find a goddamn canister lock on the door.
The protagonist's self-awareness with a lot of these puzzles and padded locks, which is what I'm going to call them, is hilarious. And also the creepiness of the game, even in daylight. There's something inexplicably terrifying about an abandoned Eastern European child's playground.
There are bodies everywhere. They never saw the bots coming.
No one expected civilian robots to display this kind of aggression.
Okay, I have timestamped. This is the photo mode section of the video. Now the great news is that darkness glitch completely disappears once you're officially outside. Movement is completely unhindered, so it's a two-stick process. You R3, then you L3 to get rid of the UI, then you R3 again to get the free camera. Now there's no levitate up or down on the shoulder buttons, annoyingly, but you can do forward and back and left and right pans absolutely beautifully. Protagonist is not on screen, you don't have to remove them, and you do have quite a big radius. I was constantly pushing to the edge to try and see how far I could get, and it doesn't glitch out when you do get there, so it still looks presentable. It's these bosses and these effects, getting to look at them frozen in mid-action is absolutely amazing. The design on the hedgehog dude is one of the best in the game, and that fight, to be fair, is one of the better in the entire game. The height thing can be addressed by looking up and then raising yourself within frame, and then you've got elevation. You just can't do it as a smooth movement, but it allows you to get very close to ground, or if you want to show off a cool statue, you can get massive amounts of height. There are no sort of repeated animations or in-game effects that sometimes occur in photo modes. Everything is very much still frame. You do get to see some reflections move around, but because you've got that limited distance, there's not too much experimentation to be had in that direction. I will say Atomic Heart has some of the more interesting interior and exterior environments to explore with a photo mode like this, but more to the point, I think it's about the design of the enemies, how they are intricately put together, the robotics and the effects and how they dissipate in combat. It's great to be able to put this on right before they take a hit, or even yourself. There's nothing really like this out there in the gaming sphere with this amount of detail attached to it and a photo mode, so hat doffed firmly.
Shit, would you look at that? It's that thing again.
Be careful. HOG 7 units are quite dangerous.
Oh, come on, it's freaking adorable.
When I first saw that 4K dynamic, the old reflections on the ground, I'm too busy looking at electricity and a puzzle to realise I'm supposed to be firing at a weak spot. I was gobsmacked, and I knew that bit was spectacular, even at 1080 on a 1660, but holy hell, it hits home on that first official boss. Also, this glitter, amazing, right? And that's another thing. I knew when I got to the bottom of these stairs that there was something I had to do with those damn sundials. I didn't realise it was a quest that went down inside the complex of the gate itself and then spits you back out to then go back through it, like another 25-minute puzzle. Is Atomic Heart the graphical mammoth I wanted it to be on the PlayStation 5? Yes, 10 out of 10 on that one. Is it the ideal game I remember from February 2023? Well, not exactly. It must have been one hell of a dry patch, because I grabbed the game with both hands and immediately had to finish it. I did not get that desire with it on second playthrough, but that is my second playthrough. I've also got a feeling in the waters that this is going to be put onto the PSN network at some point. We also just had System Shock and Wulong, two games which I guarantee will be on that network for free before the end of the year. That's how my luck runs. I might actually look at this game's DLC. I'm going to sit with it. It might go on discount. Something might happen with it. So I'd love to be able to access that without spending too much money, because I did actually fork out for this physical copy. But thankfully, because it's been a year, it's knocking around for £25 in the UK. If you tried this and you're like, nah, Putin's a CUNT, then try System Shock 2, that remake. I will link it in the description and annotate, because it's a refreshing look on the seeds of that Bioshock game model, and it's sci-fi and it's pretty damn scary. Also got a 15-minute Dead Space comparison, 1 and 2, the remake, which only about 400 people watched. This is the outro, help me. I was of course Couch Cooper, and I cannot wait to see you down there.
We're all gonna burn for what we did to you.